Have you ever wondered why you've been asked so many times? So, when you're getting married, we're waiting on. Marriage is a beautiful thing instituted by God. But what about those of us who remain single? Whether it is we have not just found the right partner, perhaps it's our calling, or even it's just by choice. How do we fit into the grand scheme of things? Welcome to another episode of Singled Out for Purpose with Passion and Power, where we have honest conversations about singleness, faith, our identity in Christ, society and their labels, and who we are as single people, and how do we get to the place of marriage if that is what we truly desire. Today in studio with me is a guest who is very, very educated on the topics of relationships, man and woman, church, community, society. He has been here before. We actually had conversations on our last episode. And today we're here to talk about relationships between the church, the society, and our single people. How do we work together to ensure singles feel a sense of purpose, they feel a sense of belonging, and there's no rejection and no condemnation as we work hand in hand to build people who are ready for sound marriages? In my presence today and on this podcast is Mr. Michael A.T. Stewart. He is an author. He is a motivational speaker and he's also a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mr. Stewart, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Happy to be here.
Of course, it's a pleasure having you again in studio. And our last episode that we spoke about, when we spoke about why are men taking so long to get married, and I think it was such a very interesting conversation. And you brought out so many points that even changed my perspective in terms of how I look at what a man uses to assess and make decisions and how society is set up. And today we want to talk about there are a group of people who remain single, whether it's in the church, whether they're out of church, but they're in this space. And sometimes you hear people say, the church rushes them to the altar. Sometimes you hear some people say, yeah, but they're too picky. Sometimes you hear so many different reasons why people remain single, especially at a mature age. And we're trying to figure out now what can be done in the grand scheme of things. How does a person who really desire to be married, you're really putting yourself out there and you think you're putting in the work. You've made assessments based on bad decisions you've made, relationships you've been in, and still you're in a place of singleness. How does this person, one, realize their identity, their value in the grand scheme of things, and how do they position themselves to really get into marriage if that is what they desire?
So I want to probably couch it from the standpoint of a businessman. A businessman who wants to go into business to make money, in less than 5 years, he'll be out of business. Because he's going in there to get something. A businessman who gets into business to serve a community would be in business for generations after. So it has to start from giving. It is more blessed to give than to receive. I think one of the challenges that we have in relationships, we are going in for the person to serve me. If you can't bring anything to me, I don't want you. That is going to ensure you don't get into a relationship that will last. You will get into relationships, but it would not last. But once you're going in there to be of value to somebody, that person who understands value don't want to lose value. But if you're going in there to get, that person is going to get into the relationship, but they'll get tired of giving.
So it come, you remind me of sometimes you see these memes on social media and they say, "We're bringing to the table."
Right.
Why are you asking me what am I bringing to the table? Aren't we building a table together? Is that how it is supposed to be viewed?
Well, from the standpoint of the table, I am putting this on the table to say, this is the value I'm bringing to you. But the value that you're bringing, I must need. It's like a barter. You can't bring a value that I don't need. So when you bring your good looks, but I don't want good looks, then you have not given me anything. You have given yourself something. You're giving yourself credit. But if you understand this is a woman, and I have been able to look at that woman, scope out that woman, and I see this is what she needs in her life, this is what I can bring into her life, then I'm now coming in there to say I'm bringing this to the table. She looks at you and she says, this man has potential to go in this direction, and I could now support him in that area. That will be a good mix. When I want your body and you want to get from him money, once that money is over, so is the relationship. And once that body is changed, or a better body comes along, the relationship also ends.
But how do people get to a place of, because what you're talking about is a mature person, and we find a lot of people desiring relationships aren't really in a space of maturity where they could come to the conclusion. And I think one of my guests on this podcast, I think was Dr. Pastor Hines, she was talking about in a marriage, you have to die to yourself. So all the things that you desire, the tall, dark, handsome man for the woman, and for the man, the woman who has the Coca-Cola shape, and she's not gonna stay like that forever. And I mean, of course, you get attracted on sight first and foremost. I mean, that's who we are. We are physical beings. But how is there a space where people, I'm talking about single people, obviously, come to a point where they realize, or is there any type of resource or material or community or space that teaches people or has the conversation, yo, you cannot bring your physical being into the relationship and think that is enough. You have to go deeper. You have to pull out more. You have to extract more from yourself to give to somebody, especially if you want the sun, the moon, and the stars. Is there a space? And if there isn't a space, how can that space be created?
Right. And it comes back to an earlier conversation that we had where the church comes in inside of this. And I agree that we have not, as a church, been supporting singles. Because when you talk about conferences, it's couples, it's marriage counseling, conferences, etc. Seniors, we gather for seniors and so on. And I remember I got a message from a lady. She said, she is now a widow. So she's back to single. And she said, there's nothing in the church to support us in what we're going. I hear the same thing with young people, and that is true. In our congregation, what we do, every Sunday night after worship, we ask those who wish to stay back, you stay back, and we have something called family food, using family feud work, because we bring things to eat and we sit down, we talk family life, we talk single life, we talk about how to get into relationships and so on. So we have taken into consideration the single people, also the married people, etc. But I would admit that we don't do enough, given how many people. Remember last time I was here, I was saying the number of people is 146.3 million single people in the United States. 93.6 million of them never ever married. This is not people who have divorced and all of that, never ever married. So we have a large catchment of single people, but we don't have anything in place. And I think that is something that we can now look to see what can we do to support these single people in the process.
Do you think, as we brought church in the conversation, do you think that the churches or the way society is set up now, because the churches are part of society, society is a part of the church, we all intertwined. Do you think that it is seen as important enough for the church to invest resources, time, money, effort into creating programs or creating a space, as you have done in your assembly, to ensure that these people feel a part of something? Do you see the church trying to make the effort now, and do you see the single people gravitate into the effort that the church will eventually put in to ensure there is a space for you to feel value, whether it is creating programs for them, ordaining them to do something, whatever it is? Do you see that happening anytime in the near future? Do you see that kind of movement right now?
I am not seeing us being aggressively affecting it, but we do need to do it. One of the things that we have planning is a Caribbean cruise with singles. So bring them from different islands, because you don't find, even in your own congregation, you tell us, I don't see anybody here, or sometimes on your own island, I don't see anybody here. But as Jesus told his disciples, if you don't catch fish on one side of the boat, cast your net on the other side. So you might have to go outside of your space. And I feel that a Caribbean cruise, having singles brought on there, is a wonderful thing to be able to meet so many people. Not necessarily that you have to get somebody there, but it exposes you to options and to see what are the possibilities and so on. So we have a group that is pulling that together. We don't know how far that is going to go because that costs something. Most of the cruises are outside of the Caribbean also. So, but yes, we need to do something aggressive considering.
No, I like the idea of the singles cruise, and I'm just going to put a plug there for all you singles out there, men and women. This might be a golden opportunity, and as Mr. Stewart said, you might not find somebody there, but at least you'll see options. You'll get to network and meet people, and as soon as that cruise day come out, I buy my ticket. And I really think it's a good idea. And I remember a pastor who was a mentor to me said to me once, if you stay in the four walls of your church Sunday after Sunday, there is no chance of you finding a mate because the same people are going to be here. Even if new people come into the church, the chances are still slim.
That's right.
So I really need to agree with you there. And I think this is something that we could, kind of network together with churches, at least in our local community. Because if you look at where we are positioned geographically, let's talk about Tobago, that's where we are. And I know the audience is going to grow wider in time to come. But if we look at where we are and we look at the possibilities out there, we look at the options that are there, they're very, very limited.
Yes.
Most of the people who want to get married are already married. And the others are they're just kind of skimming through to see what is available. People migrate, for instance, and they go away. So it becomes very difficult for single people to even see somebody. I welcome this cruise. I'm just saying that over and over again, that I welcome this cruise. In the meantime, while those things are being looked at and they have to flesh out, and it wouldn't happen tomorrow because they're going to take some time. A single person sitting here now and thinking, okay, this sounds good, but they want some kind of immediate impact. They want some kind of immediate support. How do we immediately move forward with getting them in a place where they feel like you're not rejected, we haven't forgotten you?
So you're talking about having a plan locally that we could get people together. Well, I think we could use your platform and say we're going to set a date and we're going to ask single people to come together, both men and women, and we're going to have some discussion, open, frank discussions. But we're going to ask people, be prepared to listen. Be prepared to hear some stuff. Let the guys say, listen, these are the things the ladies saying that they would love to have in a man. And the men say the women doing vice versa. If we have that neutral kind of good grounding, I think we could have it right here on the island. We could invite people from Trinidad to come to Tobago and be part of it. It could be quite massive. And you are a planner, you are a person in PR and so on. I'm sure that you could be able to assist to be able to bring that up.
But I feel I've been looking at my notes because that's part of our plan in terms of this team here, Single Out Team. That's part of our plan.
Okay.
To ensure we have like a live, for you viewers, we want to have a live session where we actually bring people together to have those very same conversations.
Right. Yes.
Do you think culturally, if we're talking about our local space, do you think culturally, because you did mention something very, very important, do you think people take on the advice that you give them? Because I know that you are also a counselor. You provide counseling for marriages, single people, all types of people. Do you really believe when you give them sound advice and you lay out a plan, this is what you're going to do, step A, step B, take a journal, record your progress. Do you really believe people listen to the advice? Do you really think that people want to hear the raw truth about how they fall short in terms of achieving their goals?
Initially, they don't. But over time, they would be able to recall. I remember I was at the office one day, and there was a girl who came for a different matter there. And she said, how long I want to talk to you? The fact that I see you today, probably I need to be able to talk to you. And she told me that she wanted to talk about certain things regarding relationships because she's single. And we were talking at the time about singleness and how to come out of that single life. And I said, well, I can't remember when was that. How long ago was that? 8 years ago.
Wow. And she's still single.
Still single. And she said, all the things you said there that I was telling and fighting against, I realized I should have started.
Wow.
8 years it took us. And I've met many people come back after and say, listen, But because we have the narrative that is in society, I don't need no man, I don't need no woman, I good, and so on. And then we wait so long, and then we see crisis coming on. Because remember we said, by the time 30, 35, 40, the bar begins to drop.
And it becomes more difficult, or I should ask, does it become more difficult for someone in your position who has to help this person? Because although we're talking about the church, we're talking about society, we're talking about these pillars, and one of the pillars is counseling. That space that you provide. Do you find it becoming more difficult now for you to go back to this woman or somebody like her who you gave advice to 8 years ago? Now her circumstances will change. She would increase in age. She might have gained some weight. She might have had bad experiences. So the advice you gave her 8 years ago, you might have to alter it, adjust it.
Right. That's right.
How do you find things like that?
It makes it more difficult because your pool of fishing has also shrunk. So finding somebody 8 years later, that person has already been in relationships, broken relationships, children came along, etc., that you might find. But you want, as many times they want, still a pristine relationship where you meet a guy, meet a girl, you fall in love, and so that storybook you've lost in many cases. So you've got to now make some adjustment. Some of the very adjustment that they say you don't want this, you don't want that, you have to now accept them because those are the only things you could have going forward. So that's unfortunate, but there are some people willing to make the adjustment and have made it even after many years, and they've successfully circumvented all the issues.
So our viewers and our singles have to come to terms with, if you really want to get married, you really want to get in a relationship and you're seeking counsel, oh gosh, listen to what they're telling you now. 9 out of 10 times, looking at 9.5, 9.75 of the time, they know what they're talking about. It's the reason you pay your money and you go to counseling. Because you don't have the answers, or sometimes they do. I believe sometimes people know. They know they're strong-headed. They know they've been alone for so long, and that's something I also want to touch on. Being single for so long and still desiring marriage. Even if you don't say it, you know you're desiring marriage, but you've been single for so long. How do you get somebody like that to break out of this is my space, this is how I make my bed, this is how I make my coffee, this is how I keep my kitchen, this is how I keep my space, to now want to invite somebody into their space, into a marriage? How is that even going to work out?
That's a difficulty because when you've been single long, you are accustomed controlling things around. Now you have to share it. That becomes a difficulty. Your conversation, if you're in a relationship with somebody, and let's say you've been single, especially if you've been living alone, conversation becomes difficult. As to you'll forget to pass this by somebody because you're accustomed making the decisions on your own. So a lot of things come into play there. And the way how you like things this way inside of your house, then you have somebody else now who has it a different way. A lot of conflict starts to come up. So it is best, the Bible talks about the wife of your youth. I always believe it is better to just get married young, settle young, and so on. You have a better, as far as going to the bank is concerned, joining two salaries, going to the bank, you have an advantage with that. You make your children young, so therefore you are young when the children are grown up. You could now see your grandchildren, etc. But in 1960s or so on, the age of marriage was 23 for the man, 21 for the woman. Today, the mean age is 30 for the man and 29 for the woman. An average, you see? And that is even older in many others. But when you get married at 30, and then you settle down and then you making children, how many children can you make before you have to now cut off, etc.? And then at what age that you're going to be? I don't know if we had said this on the last time when I was in a session of students. And this girl was telling me how she wants to become a doctor. And I asked her to give me all the stages she's going to go through. Did we talk about that?
No.
All the stages, how long it will take her to finish her studies, how long it will take her to do her advance, how long it will take her to be able to do tertiary, specialize as a doctor, and then she wants to pay off her student loan and all of that. And then she said she wanted to do all of that first before she settled down in any relationship because she has to get her thing together. So I asked her now, so at which age would you make a child? She said when she's finished that. So we calculated it. Her first child, she would have been given birth when she's 61 years
Oh
old.
gosh. I don't mean to laugh, but I mean, wow.
She did not calculate that.
So when you consider all the studies she has to put in,
Pay
specializing
off her
in
loan
paying
and
off
all
the
of that.
loan,
Yes.
why would she want to pay off the loan before she gets married? Is it because you don't want to carry burdens?
Right.
Financial, you want, because, well, to me, that still seems as if you want to remain independent.
Yes. There's a heavy independence in it. And relationship is secondary. But then when you're ready to settle down in it, then is when and she said, wow, she never even thought about that. And she said, no, she had to now recalculate all of it.
Yeah, and it wouldn't work. I'm sorry. I'm not a counselor, but it will not work.
Yes.
Because you're going into that relationship as an independent person. I got my stuff, I pay off my bills, I buy my own house, I have my own car, I'm ready for a man. He don't want you.
Right.
Based on conversations I've had with men,
Yes.
he does not want you.
Because he now becomes irrelevant. A man likes a damsel in distress to rescue her. And so if he doesn't have that Rapunzel, that person that he can rescue, then what am I in the relationship for? So when she becomes independent, and especially if she has to tell him and boast that she's independent, she's actually saying, you are irrelevant in my life. You are an option. And if therefore he's an option, you are dispensable. So a man is not going to stay there. One gentleman was saying, the lady was saying that he doesn't help me in doing things in the house and so on. And he said, well, she always telling me anytime I'm ready to go. So why should I invest in the house? Why should I invest in building the house when you have this hanging over my head? So he doesn't. And so he's preparing for any time for an exit.
I want to circle back to the church a little bit. And not the church so much, but the people in the church, the single people in the church. I know sometimes the conversation is, as soon as the church, when you say amen and church dismisses, you pick up your bag and you're gone. And we also said that the options might be limited in church. But if you hang around a couple minutes after church and you talk to a few people, what your possibilities might be looking like instead of just grabbing your bag and going home?
The possibility is this: even if you don't have the person there, you get practice in being able to connect with people. That's one. Two, the person that we look for as the dream person most likely is not the person for us. But somebody who is unassuming might be right in our congregation that we didn't check out before. So there was this lady that she's an engineer, and she's looking for somebody in her more or less her academic and her professional status. And I would ask her, why do you think you need to get somebody there? Well, so that she wants somebody in the man. I said, what are you looking for? She said, I want a guy who would support me in what I'm doing. I want a guy who is also going to be a good father to my children and so on, who believes in family life and so on. Then you don't need an engineer. So she married an electrician, right? Which he never went to high school. He learned electricity. But she says he is dedicated to those children. He supports her as a husband, and he's a serious Christian. Why you want an engineer?
Status.
Right.
And you see how we set ourselves up to fail sometimes?
Yeah. And she said, how long I've been waiting to meet this person that was in my thing, and she was getting older and older and so on. And she said she was right there.
So let me ask you this, Mr. Stewart. I want to call you Michael. So Michael, what you're really trying to tell me, right, is that I don't need a stately man.
That's right. You need a man who meets what your needs are. And if you meet that man, then that's the man to get married.
How does one know that you met the man? Because you're looking for this man who you wrote your list. You have your list, down pack, and you're walking around with this list in your mind and you're looking for this man. But this is not the man who is for you. How do you know when you meet a man who doesn't have the things on your list, but he is the man for you? How do you connect with a person?
Then the question is, where did you get the list from?
Ah.
You see,
Mm.
we have this wish list,
Mm.
and we have not examined whether the list matches what I want and what would make me satisfied in my life. So we need to review the list.
Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you need to review your list, and you have to be you really have to be realistic. And there are some things that you will not compromise on. There are certain basic things that that are standard,
Yep.
basic stuff. But the oohs and ahs and the frills, they're not really necessary. You really need to find somebody who can complement who you are, what you are looking for, and how can you balance yourself with them. How do you all work together? I find that really difficult. I feel I need to come and sit by your desk because I'm being honest, as a single person, I believe I've put myself out there. I could be wrong. Men could be seeing that she is too, whether it's too much, too whatever, too flashy, too talkative, too bossy, too whatever.
One guy in a session said she has too much happening.
Oh my God. I have a lot going on. I have a lot going on. Right? And so it's kind of difficult because I want to go back to when I asked you, do they really listen? Yes, you want to position yourself and you want to make sure the person compliments you. But it's kind of difficult when you put who you are out there. And I'm not talking about a haughty you, like the you. I am a very busy person, a busybody. I like to get involved in things. I like to do things. I like to see things happen. I like to be a part of something that is greater than who I am. And sometimes I find it very difficult for somebody to look at me and see value that they want in their lives. They might see it as too much value, like she's just too much. She's overshadowed. I've actually, when I was younger, dating around, and I was dating this guy, and he was saying to me, he always feels as if he's in competition with me. And I'm like, I'm just doing me, you are doing you, and when you are doing you, I am the loudest cheerleader. Why do you feel as if we're in competition? And so some of those things make it a little bit difficult for me to be like, oh, here I am. So what's my position? That's my position. No, seriously.
Well, we'll need to drill down further off air to be able to do that. But one of the things is what goes on in the conversations. A girl once said, I went out with this guy and he's such a great guy. I mean, he's awesome. He does so many things. He's successful in so many areas and so on. And she said 1 month later, I went out with another guy. And I'm such a wonderful person. I didn't realize I was so great. Tell me what was the difference?
I'm confused.
This guy, the first guy, spoke about himself.
So, right.
So she saw how great he was. The next guy spent the time on
adoring her.
And then he realized this guy sees me. The other guy sees himself. One of the things that is a good clue is how the tenor of the conversation goes whenever you go out with somebody. Be very, very keen in picking up that as to whether the person is self-centered or the person is looking to find out about you. They are interested in you because it's more than self. He has got to be interested in you, but you have got to be interested in him. So every so often you must say, so tell me about you. Your life sounds very interesting and so on. Bring it back to him and he will bring it back to you. But when I fly and I go to the Caribbean and I do this and so on, for sure, this ain't good.
Absolutely no.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did this study and I got this certificate and so on. But somebody who invests in you in the time that they have says that this might be a person that I need to lock in on.
So singles, remember, you can't compromise on what you want, but you have to put yourself in a place where what you really need, you can find. You don't want to have a strict list of unrealistic goals that you're trying to achieve to get married. You ain't gonna get married. You're gonna come back to Mr. Stewart after 8 years and ask him, help me to find a man or to find a woman. The church, yes, we discussed how we can come together as a church to provide a space for single people to mingle, to meet, and to, just to get to know each other for the opportunities that are out there. That cruise for singles, I am going to be on that. And also, you single people, when you leave church, when church is over, rather, don't pick up your bag and run home one time. As Mr. Stewart said, get your practice in. That's a perfect opportunity to see, can I really have a good conversation? Am I sociable? How do I speak to the opposite gender? And am I attracting the right type of people to me? These are all things you need to consider if you really do want to move from a single status to being married. Remember, you have to put in the work. You are the one who knows most what you want, and you also have to make the adjustment to ensure you attract the right person. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Singled Out for Purpose with Passion and Power. Remember to leave your comments on this video so we know that what we spoke about today made a lot of sense to you, that you are going to make the necessary adjustments to get to where you want to be. Remember, we are growing a community here. So subscribe to this channel and share with all of your friends. Until next time, this has been Singled Out, and I am your host, Adana Kambi.